My name is Dante. 53 years old, and I never thought those words would cut so deep. 8 years of love support and trying to be a father to my stepdaughter, Sophia. Then one evening, she screamed at me, "Shut up, paying bills won't make you my real father." In that moment, something broke inside me. What I did next shocked both her and her mother, Amanda. But sometimes, tough love is the only way forward. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want more real-life family stories, and stay until the end to see how one decisive action changed everything between us. I was never supposed to be a father. At least that is what I thought after my first wife, Linda, passed away from breast cancer 10 years ago. We never had children together, something that used to keep me up at night wondering what could have been. I threw myself into my work as a structural engineer, designing buildings that would stand the test of time, even if my personal life had crumbled around me. Then I met Amanda at a charity fundraiser for cancer research. I had been donating regularly in Linda's memory, and Amanda was volunteering at the event. She had warm brown eyes that crinkled when she smiled, and we started talking about everything and nothing. Before I knew it, 3 hours had passed, and we were the last ones there helping the staff stack chairs. Amanda was 38 at the time, divorced, and had an 8-year-old daughter named Sophia. Her ex-husband, Jackson, had walked out on them when Sophia was just 5 years old. He moved to another state for a job opportunity that apparently did not have room for a wife and daughter. The way Amanda described it, his calls and visits became less frequent until they were almost non-existent. Child support checks came irregularly, if at all. "It is just us girls against the world," Amanda had said with forced brightness during our third date. I remember the first time I met Sophia. Amanda had invited me over for dinner after we had been dating for about 2 months. Sophia was shy but polite with her mother's eyes and a serious expression that seemed too mature for her age. She answered my questions with one-word responses and kept glancing at her mother as if seeking approval. "Do you build really tall buildings?" she asked suddenly while we were eating dessert. "Sometimes," I replied. "Right now I am working on a library that will have a glass dome ceiling so people can read while looking up at the stars." Her eyes had widened at that, and for the first time that evening I saw genuine interest. "Can I see it when it is done?" "Absolutely," I promised. "I will give you a special tour." From that point on, things got easier between us. I was careful never to overstep or try too hard. I knew from talking with friends who had dated single parents that the quickest way to alienate a child was to act like you were replacing their absent parent. Instead, I focused on being myself and finding common ground with Sophia. We discovered she had an interest in architecture too, so I brought her sketch pads and pencils. We would spend Saturday mornings drawing buildings, bridges, and fantastical structures that defied gravity. Amanda would watch us with a soft smile, and I could see hope blooming in her eyes. After 2 years of dating, I asked Amanda to marry me. We had discussed it extensively, including how it would affect Sophia. Amanda said yes, but we agreed to talk to Sophia together. I still remember sitting in their living room, heart pounding, as we explained that I wanted to become part of their family. "Does this mean you will live here all the time?" Sophia had asked, her expression unreadable. "Actually," I said, "I was thinking we might look for a new house together. Somewhere with a bigger yard and maybe a room you could use as an art studio." Her face had lit up at that. "Can I pick my room colors?" "Absolutely," I assured her. The wedding was small but joyful. Sophia was the flower girl and took her duties very seriously. Jackson did not attend, though Amanda had extended an invitation out of courtesy. He sent a generic card with a gift certificate that arrived 2 weeks after the ceremony. I put a down payment on a 4-bedroom house in a good school district with a large backyard and a room we converted into an art studio for Sophia just as promised. I painted her bedroom the exact shade of teal blue she had chosen with a mural of the New York skyline on one wall that we worked on together. Those first few years were an adjustment, but mostly happy. Sophia started calling me Dante instead of Mr. Dante, which felt like progress. I helped with homework, attended school functions, and tried to provide stability and support. I worked long hours sometimes managing construction projects, but always made it to her school plays and art shows. For her 11th birthday, I built her a tree house in the backyard with a rope ladder and a pulley system to lift supplies. Her friends thought it was the coolest thing ever, and seeing her beaming with pride as she showed it off made all the splinters and weekend work worth it. When she turned 14, I taught her how to drive in empty parking lots on Sunday mornings, letting her get comfortable behind the wheel long before she would be eligible for a permit. Amanda thought I was crazy, but I remembered how terrified I had been when my father first handed me the keys, and I wanted Sophia to feel confident. I never tried to replace Jackson. When he did call, which was rare, I made sure Sophia had privacy to talk. I encouraged Amanda to facilitate visits if he showed interest. But years would go by with just a birthday card or a brief phone call around Christmas. I could see the disappointment in Sophia's eyes each time, and it broke my heart. He is missing out on knowing an amazing young woman. I told her once after a particularly difficult birthday when he had promised to visit but canceled last minute. She had just shrugged and said, "It is whatever." But I saw her blinking back tears. All those moments, all that history, all the love and effort I had poured into being a father to Sophia, even if not by blood, made what was coming all the more painful. The changes were subtle at first. Around the time Sophia turned 13, she started spending more time in her room with the door closed. Family dinners became quieter, with most of my questions met with shrugs or one-word answers. I chalked it up to normal teenage behavior, remembering my own sullen phase that had driven my parents crazy. "She is just growing up," Amanda assured me. "All kids go through this." But by 14, the changes were more pronounced. Sophia started dressing differently, wearing dark makeup and clothes that deliberately pushed the boundaries of the school dress code. Her grades, once consistently A's and B's, began to slip. Notes came home about missed assignments and attitude problems in class. When I tried to talk to her about it, she rolled her eyes and said, "You would not understand." "Try me," I said. "I was a teenager once too, believe it or not." "Yeah, like 100 years ago," she replied, then put in her earbuds and walked away. It hurt, but I remembered saying similar things to my own parents. Teenagers push boundaries, test limits. It is how they figure out who they are, separate from their parents. I tried to be patient, to pick my battles. The real trouble started when Sophia began hanging out with a new group of friends from school. There was a girl named Jasmine, whose parents seemed perpetually absent, and a boy called Tyler, who was 2 years older and already had his driver's license. Suddenly, Sophia wanted to go to the mall every weekend, to movies I had never heard of, to parties at houses where I was not sure adults were present. "We need to know where you are and who you are with," I insisted after she came home an hour past curfew one Friday night. "God, you are so controlling," she snapped. "None of my friends have to deal with this." "None of your friends have parents who care enough to worry," I countered, immediately regretting my tone. Amanda tried to mediate. "Sophia, we just want you to be safe. Text us if you are going to be late, okay?" Sophia agreed reluctantly, but the incident created a pattern. Rules were established. Sophia broke them, consequences were threatened, but rarely enforced because Amanda worried about pushing her away further. I found myself cast as the bad guy more often than not, the one who insisted on curfews, and knowing who she was spending time with. Then, when Sophia was 15, Jackson suddenly reappeared in her life. He found her on social media and started messaging her regularly. According to Sophia, he had a stable job now, a nice apartment, and wanted to reconnect. He sent her gifts and made grand promises about trips they would take together. "Dad says he might take me to Paris next summer," she announced at dinner one night, the first time she had voluntarily spoken during a meal in weeks. Amanda and I exchanged glances. "That sounds nice," Amanda said carefully. "Has he mentioned it to me because international travel would need to be coordinated?" Sophia's face darkened. "Why do you always have to ruin everything he wants to spend time with me? Is that so hard to believe?" "No one is saying that, Sophia," I interjected gently. "But there are practical considerations, that is all." "Whatever," she muttered, pushing away from the table. "You are just jealous because he is my real dad." The words stung, but I tried not to show it. This was not about me or my feelings. If Jackson was finally stepping up to be a father to Sophia, I should support that right. Every child deserves a relationship with their biological parents if possible. But as the weeks went on, I noticed troubling patterns. Jackson would make elaborate promises that excited Sophia, then fail to follow through. He would schedule video calls and not show up. The few times he did visit, he took her shopping, bought her expensive things I would have considered inappropriate, like a crop top with suggestive wording, and returned her home hours later than agreed upon. "We lost track of time," he would say with a charming smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Father-daughter bonding, you know how it is." Except I did know how it was, and it was not about buying affection with gifts and no boundaries. It was about being there consistently through mundane homework struggles and awkward school dances and tearful friendship dramas. It was about showing up day after day, even when it was hard or boring or thankless. Amanda seemed torn. On one hand, she wanted Sophia to have a relationship with her father. On the other, she could see the emotional roller coaster each interaction created. When Jackson showed attention, Sophia was on top of the world. When he inevitably disappointed her, she would crash into moods so dark that no one could reach her, not even her mother. "Maybe we should talk to a family counselor," I suggested one night after Sophia had locked herself in her room following another canceled visit from Jackson. "She would never agree to go," Amanda sighed. "And forcing her would just make things worse." "Then maybe you and I should go," I pressed. "Get some professional advice on how to handle this situation." But life was busy, Amanda was stretched thin between work and home, and somehow we never made that appointment. Looking back, it was one of many missed opportunities to address what was happening before it reached a breaking point. As Jackson's influence grew, my relationship with Sophia deteriorated further. She began comparing us constantly, usually in ways that painted me in an unfavorable light. "Dad says you are too strict. He says teenagers need freedom to express themselves. Dad says your rules are old-fashioned. No one cares about curfews anymore. Dad says I could live with him if you guys keep suffocating me." That last one led to a rare argument between Amanda and me after Sophia had gone to bed. "Are you taking these threats seriously?" I asked, trying to keep my voice down. "They are not threats, Dante. He is allowed to spend time with his daughter." Spending time is one thing. Undermining our parenting and suggesting she move out is another. "Have you talked to him directly about any of this?" Amanda looked away. "It is complicated. I do not want to start a conflict that could end up hurting Sophia. And this is not hurting her, the mixed messages, the broken promises. You see how devastated she is every time he disappears again." "At least he is trying now," Amanda said defensively. "That is more than he did for years." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Trying would be respecting the boundaries we have set as her primary caregivers. Trying would be consistent, reliable presence in her life. Not this on, again, off again attention that leaves her emotional whiplash. The conversation ended in a stalemate, with both of us frustrated and no resolution in sight. It was the first of many similar discussions that left me feeling increasingly isolated in my own home. The once unified front Amanda and I had presented in parenting Sophia was crumbling, and I did not know how to fix it. As Sophia approached 16, the conflicts escalated from simmer to boil. The first major blow-up happened when she lost her third phone in 6 months and demanded the latest model as a replacement. "Everyone at school has one," she insisted. "I look like a total loser with my old phone." "That old phone was brand new 4 months ago," I pointed out. "And we agreed that if you lost another one, you would need to earn the money for a replacement." "That is so unfair. It was stolen from my locker." "Did you report it to the school file, a police report for the insurance?" Her silence was answer enough. "I will get you a basic replacement phone for now," I offered. "You can save up for the model you want." "Dad would just buy me the one I want," she shot back. "He understands that social status matters in high school." "Well, I understand that responsibility matters in life," I replied, trying to keep my voice even. "Actions have consequences, Sophia. That is a lesson worth learning." She stormed off, slamming her door so hard, a framed photo fell off the wall in the hallway. When I picked it up, I noticed it was a picture of the three of us at the Grand Canyon, 2 years earlier, all smiling with our arms around each other. The glass had cracked right between Sophia and me, a metaphor so on the nose it would have been rejected from a screenplay for being too obvious. The next significant incident occurred when I got a call from Sophia's school counselor. She had been skipping classes regularly, something we had no idea about, because she had been intercepting the automated attendance calls and deleting the emails before we saw them. When confronted, Sophia exploded. "Why are you monitoring my emails? That is an invasion of privacy." "We were not monitoring anything," I explained calmly. "The school counselor called me directly because they are concerned." "Where have you been going during school hours?" "None of your business," she snapped. "It absolutely is my business. You are 16 years old, and I am responsible for knowing where you are during the day." "You are not responsible for me. You are not my father." There it was, the card she increasingly played when backed into a corner. I took a deep breath. "No, I am not your biological father, but I am an adult who loves you and has helped raise you for the past 8 years. That comes with certain responsibilities that I take seriously, including making sure you are safe and getting an education." Amanda finally intervened. "Sophia, this is serious. Skipping school can affect your future. We need to know where you have been going." After much prodding, it came out that she had been hanging out at the mall with friends who were similarly disenchanted with school. No drugs or alcohol were involved, thankfully, but it was still concerning behavior. We grounded her for 2 weeks. No phone except for emergencies, no social media, no going out except for school. She acted like we had sentenced her to a torture chamber, railing against the unfairness of it all, and how none of her friends had such psycho-controlling parents. The day the punishment ended, Jackson was supposed to take her to a concert he had promised months ago. Sophia had been talking about it non-stop, clinging to it, as the light at the end of the tunnel during her grounding. She spent hours getting ready, trying on different outfits, doing and redoing her makeup. He never showed up. No call, no text, nothing. I found her sitting on the front porch steps, still dressed up, checking her phone every 30 seconds. It was already an hour past when he was supposed to arrive. "He probably just got caught in traffic," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Or his phone died." I sat down beside her, careful to leave space between us. "Have you tried calling him?" "It goes straight to voicemail," she admitted, her voice small. We sat in silence for another 30 minutes. I offered to try calling him from my phone. No answer. I suggested we could still make the concert. If we left right away, I would take her. She declined, saying it would not be the same. By the time she finally gave up and went inside, 3 hours had passed, and her carefully applied makeup was streaked with tears. Amanda tried to comfort her, but Sophia pushed her away. "Just leave me alone, both of you." The next morning, Jackson sent a text saying something had come up and he would make it up to her. He never specified what the emergency was, never apologized properly. 2 weeks later, he sent her a pair of expensive sneakers with no note. I expected this incident might create an opening, a moment, where Sophia would see the contrast between Jackson's unreliability and our consistent presence. Instead, she somehow twisted it in her mind to be partially my fault. "He probably felt weird coming here because you always make him feel unwelcome," she accused over breakfast. I nearly choked on my coffee. "Sophia, I have never been anything but polite to your father. I have encouraged your relationship with him. You always have this look when he comes over, like you are judging him. The only thing I judge him for is hurting you by making promises he does not keep," I said honestly. "See that right there is why he does not feel comfortable around here." It was maddening logic, but arguing with a teenager rarely gets anywhere. I bit my tongue and let it go, which was becoming my default response to avoid constant conflict. Around this time, I discovered Sophia had been attending unsupervised parties where alcohol was present. A parent of one of her more responsible friends called to make sure we knew about a particularly wild party planned for the weekend, concerned that her own daughter was being pressured to attend. When confronted, Sophia initially denied everything, then switched to defiance when she realized we had concrete information. "So what if there is beer everyone drinks in high school? It is no big deal." "It is illegal, dangerous, and absolutely not happening," I stated firmly. "You cannot stop me," she challenged. "Actually, we can," Amanda interjected, finally backing me up fully. "You are not going to that party, period." Sophia turned her fury on her mother. "Of course you would take his side, you always do. Dad says you have no backbone anymore, that you just do whatever Dante wants." Amanda paled. "Your father said that to you?" "He says a lot of things about both of you," Sophia said, with cruel satisfaction, clearly enjoying the impact of her words. That night, I tried once again to talk to Amanda about Jackson's inappropriate influence. "He is actively undermining our parenting and poisoning her against us," I argued. "This has gone beyond normal co-parenting issues." "What do you want me to do?" Amanda asked tiredly. "Ban her from seeing him. That would only make her resent us more. I want us to be on the same page. I want you to correct her when she throws these manipulative tactics at us. I want you to stand up for our family." "This is impossible," Amanda sighed. "No matter what I do, I am the bad guy to someone." I understood her position, caught between her daughter and her husband, but the lack of united front was making an already difficult situation untenable. I felt increasingly alone in trying to maintain boundaries and expectations, painted as the villain in a story where I had only ever tried to be supportive. The night everything came to a head started like any other Tuesday. I had come home from work, changed out of my suit, and started helping with dinner while Amanda finished up some work emails. Sophia was in her room, music blasting loudly enough that we could feel the bass vibrating through the ceiling. We had been walking on eggshells around each other for days following the party confrontation. Sophia had been given consequences, including a strict curfew and limited phone privileges, which had resulted in sullen silence and bare minimum communication. Dinner was ready, and Amanda called upstairs for Sophia to join us. After the third call went unanswered, I went up and knocked on her door. "Dinner's ready," I said loudly to be heard over the music. The volume decreased slightly, and Sophia opened the door. She had changed her hair since that morning, adding streaks of purple that definitely had not been approved. I chose not to comment on it. Food's on the table. Your mom made lasagna. I am not hungry, she said, starting to close the door. Family dinner is not optional, Sophia. Everyone comes to the table. With a dramatic sigh that only teenagers can truly perfect, she slouched past me and down the stairs. At the table, she pushed her food around without eating, radiating hostility. How was school today? Amanda asked, attempting normal conversation. Fine. Any progress on that history project? I tried. It is handled. We ate in uncomfortable silence for a few minutes, before Sophia suddenly put down her fork. I need $200 by Friday, she announced. Amanda and I exchanged glances. What for? I asked. Some of us are going camping at Lake Tahoe this weekend. I need to pay my share for the cabin rental. Who is going? Amanda asked. Which parents are chaperoning? Sophia rolled her eyes. No parents, obviously. It is just my friends. Jasmine, Tyler, Alex, and a few others you have met. We have not met Tyler, I pointed out. And Alex only briefly. Which adults will be there? We are 16 and 17, not babies. We do not need babysitters. You absolutely do need adult supervision for a weekend at a cabin, I said firmly. That is not happening without more information and planning. God, you are so controlling. Dad would let me go. Well, your dad is not the one raising you day to day, I replied, feeling my patience wear thin. The adults who are responsible for your well-being get to make these decisions. I was not asking permission, Sophia shot back. I was telling you I need the money. I am going whether you like it or not. No, you are not, I said. And that is final, unless you can provide full details, contact information shown for the cabin, which parents will be present, and a proper plan. That is when she stood up, face flushed with anger, and shouted the words that would change everything. Shut up, paying bills won't make you my real father. The room went silent. I felt like I had been physically struck. 8 years of love and care reduced to a financial transaction, dismissed as meaningless, because we did not share DNA. Amanda gasped. Sophia, apologize right now. Why should I? It is true. Sophia continued, unleashing years of pent-up resentment. He thinks buying a house and paying for stuff gives him the right to control my life. Well, it does not. He is not my father, and he never will be. I stood up slowly, placing my napkin beside my plate with deliberate calm, despite the storm raging inside me. I think I need some air, I said quietly, and walked out the front door. I could hear Amanda calling Sophia's name as I closed the door behind me, but I could not stay in that house another minute. I got in my car and just drove, no destination in mind, just needing distance and space to think. 8 years. 8 years of school events and doctor appointments and nightmares and homework help and birthday parties. 8 years of trying to be there in all the ways that mattered. And in her eyes, I was just the guy who paid the bills. I drove for hours, circling the city on highways and back roads, trying to process what had happened and what it meant. The digital clock on my dashboard read 11:37 p.m. when I finally pulled back into our driveway, having reached a decision that felt both terrifying and necessary. When I walked back into the house, the lights were dimmed and everything was quiet. Amanda was waiting up for me in the living room, her eyes red from crying. Are you okay? She asked, rising to meet me. Not really, I admitted, but I know what I need to do. Dante, she did not mean it. She was angry and lashing out. You know how teenagers are. I shook my head. This is not just teenage rebellion, Amanda. This is a pattern that has been building for years, and we have both been avoiding dealing with it directly. That ends tonight. Instead of continuing the conversation with Amanda, I went to my home office and closed the door. I spent the next several hours doing something I should have done months, maybe years ago. First, I wrote a letter pouring out everything I had felt and experienced as Sophia's stepfather for the past 8 years. I wrote about the first time I met her, the treehouse I built, teaching her to drive the middle school science fair project we stayed up all night fixing when it broke the day before it was due. I wrote about my hopes and dreams for her future, my fears about the path she was on, and most of all about how much I loved her despite everything. Next, I gathered documents. Every school tuition payment, every medical bill, every receipt for dance lessons and art supplies and summer camps. I collected photos of birthday parties I had planned, Christmas mornings, family vacations. I put together a detailed timeline of my involvement in her life, not as evidence to throw in her face, but as a concrete record of my commitment. By 3 a.m., I had compiled everything into a binder with the letter sealed in an envelope placed on top. I did not plan to use this as a weapon, but rather as a foundation for what would come next. While Amanda slept, I made 3 important phone calls, leaving messages that would set wheels in motion. First, to a family therapist highly recommended by a colleague who had navigated a similar situation with his blended family. Second, to my lawyer requesting information about my legal rights and responsibilities as a step-parent. Third, to a parenting coach who specialized in troubled teens. When morning came, I had not slept, but I felt clear-headed and resolved. Amanda found me in the kitchen making coffee. "You were up all night," she observed, concern evident in her voice. "I needed to think and plan," I replied, handing her a cup. "We need to talk before Sophia wakes up." Over the next 30 minutes, I laid out what I had come to understand during my night of reflection. The current situation was untenable not just for me, but for all of us. Sophia was spiraling, testing limits and finding none. Amanda was caught in the middle, afraid of damaging her relationship with her daughter. And I had been retreating to avoid conflict, allowing boundaries to erode until we had reached this breaking point. "Things need to change," I told Amanda firmly. "Not just with Sophia, but with us too. We cannot continue to be divided and conquered. Either we present a united front in parenting her, or we are doomed to fail." "What are you saying?" "Are you threatening to leave?" Amanda asked, fear evident in her voice. "No, I am committing to stay and fight for our family, but not in the way we have been doing it. I have set up an appointment with a family therapist for next week. All 3 of us need to attend." "She will refuse," Amanda predicted. "Then she loses privileges until she agrees," I said simply. "No phone, no internet except for schoolwork, no social outings." That is pretty extreme. What is extreme is allowing a 16-year-old to verbally abuse the adults in her life without consequences. What is extreme is watching her make potentially dangerous choices and feeling powerless to intervene. What is extreme is living in a home where respect only flows one way. Amanda was quiet for a long moment. "You are right," she finally said, reaching for my hand. "I have been afraid of pushing her away, but in the process, I have been letting her push you away instead. That is not fair, and it is not what I want." "I need to know you have my back," I told her honestly. "Not just in private, but in front of Sophia too. We can disagree behind closed doors, but to her we need to be a team." "I promise," Amanda said, squeezing my hand. "So what is the plan?" I outlined the changes I had in mind. First, a family meeting where new expectations would be clearly stated. Second, the therapy appointment, where we would all have a safe space to express our feelings with professional guidance. Third, a gradual rebuilding of trust through consistent boundaries and open communication. "What about the binder you put together?" Amanda asked, having noticed it on the counter. "That is something I needed to do for myself to remember why I am fighting so hard for this family. I will share parts of it when the time is right, but right now it is more important that we focus on moving forward, not looking back." When Sophia finally emerged from her room around noon, she looked wary, clearly expecting to be punished for her outburst the night before. Instead, I calmly informed her that we would be having a family meeting at 5 p.m. after I returned from some errands. Those errands included visiting Sophia's school to speak with her counselor about her recent behavior changes and academic struggles. I learned she had been skipping more classes than we realized and was at risk of failing 2 subjects. The counselor seemed relieved that we were taking action and offered resources to support our efforts. I also stopped by the office of the therapist I had called, filling out preliminary paperwork and getting a better sense of what to expect from our first session. Finally, I met briefly with my lawyer, who clarified that while I had limited legal rights as a step-parent, there were still ways I could remain involved in Sophia's life, even in a worst-case scenario. By the time I returned home, I felt equipped with information and support that had been sorely lacking in our previous attempts to address the situation. The family meeting was tense but productive. I started by acknowledging that I had made mistakes in my approach, sometimes being too rigid or failing to listen effectively. This admission seemed to catch Sophia off guard, as she had clearly been prepared for anger or punishment. "However," I continued, "there are certain standards of respect that are non-negotiable in this family. Speaking to anyone the way you spoke to me last night is unacceptable regardless of how angry you feel." Amanda backed me up, explaining that while Sophia had every right to her feelings, how she expressed them mattered. "We understand you are navigating a complicated relationship with your father," she said gently. "But that does not give you license to hurt the people who have been consistently there for you." Sophia was sullen, but less combative than I had expected. Perhaps she had reflected on her words and felt some remorse, or maybe she was just surprised by our calm, unified approach. We outlined the new expectations, including the therapy appointment, stricter enforcement of school attendance, and a restructuring of privileges based on responsible behavior rather than as guaranteed rights. We also made it clear that any discussion of the Lake Tahoe trip was off the table until these fundamental issues were addressed. "This is so unfair," Sophia muttered predictably. "It may feel that way now," I acknowledged. "But we are doing this because we love you and want what is best for you in the long run, not just what feels good in the moment." As the meeting concluded, I handed Sophia a journal. "The therapist suggested you might want to write down your thoughts and feelings before our first session," I explained. "Private thoughts you are not ready to share, yet questions you have anything that might help you prepare." She took it reluctantly, but did not immediately reject the idea, which I counted as a small victory. That night, after Sophia had gone to her room, Amanda and I talked more about our path forward. "I am proud of you," she told me. "Most men would have walked away after what she said." "I am not most men," I replied simply. "And she is not most teenagers. She is ours, and we fight for family." The days leading up to our first therapy session were not easy. Sophia alternated between cold silence and pointed barbs, testing whether our new unified approach would hold. Jackson called once during this time, and when Sophia asked if she could go to a movie with him that weekend, we agreed on the condition that he pick her up and drop her off at specific times. Predictably, he was late for pickup, and even later for drop-off, with no communication during the 4 hours she was gone. When Sophia finally returned home, her eyes were red-rimmed, as if she had been crying. "Everything okay?" Amanda asked carefully. "Fine," Sophia said automatically, but then hesitated on the stairs. He spent most of the time on his phone. The movie was fine, I guess. It was the first voluntary information she had offered about time with her father, and the disappointment in her voice was unmistakable. I wanted to point out the contrast between his behavior and our expectations, but knew it would only make her defensive. Instead, I simply said, "I am sorry it was not more fun. We are here if you want to talk." She did not take me up on the offer, but the seed was planted. Our first therapy session with Dr. Lena Reynolds was uncomfortable but revealing. She started by establishing ground rules about respect and listening, then asked each of us to describe our perception of the family dynamic in our own words. Amanda went first, speaking honestly about feeling torn between her roles as wife and mother, her guilt about Sophia's absent father, and her fear of making the wrong choices. When my turn came, I talked about my deep commitment to our family and my struggle to find the right balance as a stepfather, wanting to provide guidance without overstepping. Sophia initially refused to participate, staring silently at the floor. But after Dr. Reynolds assured her that this was a safe space with no judgment or punishment for honesty, she finally spoke. "Everyone acts like I should just forget about my real dad and be grateful that Dante stepped in," she said bitterly. "Like I am supposed to pretend we are some perfect family. But he is not my father, no matter how much everyone wants him to be." "No one expects you to forget your father," I said carefully. "I have always supported your relationship with him." "Yeah, right," Sophia scoffed. "You get this look every time he calls, like you are just waiting for him to mess up." There was truth in her accusation that I had to acknowledge. "You are right that I worry when he makes promises to you, because I have seen how hurt you are when those promises are broken. That is not about wanting to replace him. It is about not wanting to see you hurt." "But what if that is my choice?" she challenged. "What if I would rather have some time with my real dad, even if it is not perfect, than have you trying to control everything?" Dr. Reynolds intervened at this point, guiding us toward more productive dialogue. "Sophia, it sounds like you feel your connection with your biological father is not being respected or supported enough. Dante and Amanda, it sounds like you are trying to protect Sophia from disappointment, while also maintaining necessary boundaries as parents. These are not necessarily mutually exclusive goals." By the end of the session, we had not resolved anything, but we had at least identified the core issues more clearly. Dr. Reynolds gave us communication exercises to practice at home and scheduled weekly sessions for the foreseeable future. On the drive home, Sophia asked unexpectedly, "Did you really mean what you said about supporting my relationship with my dad?" "Yes," I answered honestly. "I have never wanted to come between you and your father. I just want that relationship to be healthy and consistent for your sake." She was quiet for the rest of the ride, but it felt like a tiny crack in the wall she had built between us. The breakthrough came from an unexpected direction a few weeks later. Jackson had promised to take Sophia shopping for a dress for the upcoming homecoming dance. He was supposed to pick her up at 10 a.m. on Saturday, but by noon he had not arrived or called. Sophia tried calling him repeatedly, each attempt increasing her anxiety. "He probably just overslept," she said, pacing by the window. "Or his phone died." The excuses were familiar, the hope in her voice heartbreaking. By 2 p.m. it was clear he was not coming. Sophia retreated to her room, and the sound of muffled crying filtered through the door. After a brief discussion with Amanda, I knocked gently. "Sophia, may I come in?" There was no answer, but the crying had stopped. I took that as permission and opened the door slowly. She was curled up on her bed, face buried in a pillow. "The dance is next weekend," I said quietly. "If you still want to look for a dress, I would be happy to take you." Why would I want to go with you? She asked, her voice thick with tears. Because you deserve to have a beautiful dress for homecoming, regardless of who takes you shopping. And because I keep my promises. She sat up, wiping her eyes. Fine. Whatever. It is not like I have other options. It was not exactly enthusiastic acceptance, but it was something. An hour later, we were at the mall, moving awkwardly between dress shops. I knew nothing about teenage fashion, but I did know Sophia. When she hesitated over a dark blue dress that brought out her eyes, but was more expensive than the others, I encouraged her to try it on. It is too much, she protested half-heartedly. Let us see how it looks first, I suggested. Then we can decide. When she emerged from the dressing room, even the saleswoman gasped. The dress transformed her from a sullen teenager to a young woman on the cusp of adulthood, elegant and suddenly uncertain. You look beautiful, I said simply. For the first time in months, she smiled at me, a real smile without sarcasm or resentment. You think so? I know so. That is definitely the one. As we waited in line to pay, her phone rang. It was Jackson finally calling back. I could only hear her side of the conversation, but it was clear he was making excuses. It is fine, she said flatly. I already found a dress. No, Dante took me shopping. Yeah, whatever. Bye. She hung up and stared at her phone for a long moment. He said he had car trouble, she finally said. But I could hear people in the background, like he was at a party or something. I did not comment, just squeezed her shoulder gently. She did not pull away. That shopping trip marked a subtle shift in our relationship. Sophia was still moody and difficult at times, but the outright hostility began to fade. She started joining us for family dinners without being called multiple times. Once she even asked for my help with a physics problem that was giving her trouble. Jackson continued his pattern of inconsistency, making grand promises and then vanishing when it came time to deliver. Each disappointment seemed to open Sophia's eyes a little more to the reality of who he was versus who she wanted him to be. About a month after our first therapy session, I came home to find Sophia sitting at the kitchen table with the binder I had compiled that night after her outburst. Amanda told me later that Sophia had found it while looking for a stapler in my office. I hope you are not mad, Sophia said quietly as I set down my briefcase. Mom said it would be okay for me to look at it. It is okay, I assured her, sitting down across from her. I made it for all of us. There is so much stuff in here, she said, turning a page filled with photos of a science museum trip from years earlier. You kept all this? Of course. They are memories of our family. And she turned another page, revealing the tuition statements and medical bills I had included. Why did you put these in here? They are just boring papers. Not to me, I said carefully. Each one represents a choice I made to be part of your life, to help take care of you. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. She was quiet for a long time, continuing to flip through the pages. I read your letter, she finally admitted. The one on top. My heart rate quickened. And you really meant all that? About being proud of me and stuff, even after everything I said. Every word I confirmed. Sophia, nothing you could say or do would change the fact that I love you. Being a parent, whether by blood or by choice, means loving unconditionally. She closed the binder, eyes downcast. I have been really awful to you. You have been a teenager dealing with complicated feelings about family and identity, I corrected gently. That does not make you awful. It makes you human. I did not mean what I said that night, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. About you just paying bills. I know you have done way more than that. Thank you for telling me that. I said, fighting to keep my voice steady despite the emotion welling up. It means a lot to hear you say it. The healing was not instantaneous or complete. There were still difficult days and disagreements. Jackson continued to float in and out of Sophia's life, though she seemed increasingly able to take his behavior in stride rather than being devastated by each disappointment. Our weekly therapy sessions continued, providing a structured space to work through lingering issues. Amanda and I grew stronger as a couple, more aligned in our parenting approach, and more open about our fears and hopes. When Sophia's high school graduation day arrived 2 years later, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Pride in the young woman she had become, nostalgia for the little girl who once drew building designs with me on Saturday mornings, and gratitude for the journey that had brought us to this point, difficult though it had been. As we sat in the audience waiting for her name to be called, Amanda squeezed my hand. "She invited Jackson," she whispered, "just so you know." I nodded, having expected as much. It is her day. She should have everyone important to her here. When Sophia walked across the stage to receive her diploma, we stood and cheered loudly. She flashed us a smile before scanning the audience for her father. The momentary flicker of disappointment on her face told me all I needed to know. Once again, Jackson had not shown up for an important milestone. After the ceremony, as families gathered on the lawn for photos, Sophia made her way to us through the crowd. "He texted during the ceremony," she said without preamble. "Something about work and traffic. He is not coming." "I am sorry, sweetheart," Amanda said, pulling her into a hug. "It is okay," Sophia replied, and the surprising thing was, she seemed to mean it. "I kind of expected it. But you know what, I am not going to let it ruin today." She turned to me, then her expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. "Can we take some family pictures, the three of us?" "Absolutely," I said, trying not to show how much that simple request meant to me. As we posed for photos, Sophia suddenly said to the friend taking our picture, "Wait, I want to say something first." She turned to face Amanda and me. "I just want to thank you both for everything. Mom, for always believing in me even when I was at my worst. And Dante." She paused, swallowing hard. "Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. Most people would have walked away, but you stayed. You have been more of a father to me than anyone else ever has." I blinked rapidly, fighting back tears as she hugged me fiercely. "I love you, Dad," she whispered, using that title for the first time. In that moment, all the pain and struggle of the past years dissolved, replaced by a profound sense of peace. The journey had been difficult, but the destination made it worthwhile. As we celebrated at dinner that evening, Sophia talked excitedly about college plans and her summer job at an architecture firm I had helped her connect with. She had matured into a thoughtful, resilient young woman, able to set boundaries in her relationship with Jackson, while appreciating the consistent support she received at home. "You know what I realized," she said, as we shared dessert. "Family is not about DNA or obligation. It is about who shows up day after day, who loves you enough to tell you the truth even when it is hard to hear, who builds tree houses and helps with physics homework and takes you dress shopping when you are sad." Amanda wiped away a tear. "When did you get so wise?" Sophia grinned. "I had pretty good teachers." The road to healing had not been quick or easy. It had required professional help, consistent boundaries, painful honesty, and above all, unwavering patience and love. But sitting there watching Sophia laugh with the woman I loved, I knew that every difficult moment had been worth it. The teenage girl who had once shouted that paying bills would never make me her real father now understood what I had known all along, that fatherhood has nothing to do with DNA and everything to do with love, presence, and commitment. The action that had shocked her and her mother, my choice to stay and fight for our family, rather than retreat from the pain, had ultimately led us all to a deeper understanding of what family truly means. If I could go back and tell myself anything on that painful night, when Sophia's words cut so deep, it would be simple: hold on. Keep loving. The storm will pass, and what remains will be stronger for having weathered it. Have you ever faced a moment where harsh words from someone you love made you question everything? How did you respond? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life family stories. And remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do when someone pushes you away is to stay present and keep loving them anyway. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength and wisdom in your own family journeys.